Hey, I'm Stephanie Hunt. Welcome to the Cult of Flair, where I chat with creators from all walks of life about the meaning of personal style, fearless individuality, unexpected paths, and insights into finding your flair. Alongside my in-depth interview series, you'll also find snackable short episodes. I do love my snacks. I call these my Flair on the fly. I'll be serving up tips, musings, or insightful nuggets designed to expand your knowledge and to share the flair. Welcome back to the Cult of Flair. I am so excited to have our guest Ben Anderson with us today.
Hi, Flair.
Hi, Ben.
Thanks for having me on your great show.
Or Cat Daddy, as I like to call you.
Cat Daddy is here and in the
nickname.
house.
That's right.
Woo.
I'm just going to talk about you as if you aren't here for a little second and then get into questions, okay? Okay. Ben Anderson. Ben practiced law for 30 years and tried landmark, record-setting cases across the country. He then pivoted from law to music and founded Park City Song Summit, a 3-day music event held annually in October in the mountains of Utah, where artists and audience alike can share, learn, recharge, and inspire one another through the power of music and the art and craft of songwriting. Ben is grateful for his journey in recovery from substance addiction, and through the Song Summit seeks to help others who face these challenges. And just as important and fun, he's also the bass player and singer for a Grateful Dead inspired jam band that celebrated its 40th anniversary this year.
Makes me sound old, Flair.
You're not old. So even though I'm a designer and lifestyle design business, I'm obsessed with life design. Interesting people doing interesting things. And you are somebody who is doing it all. And I'm fascinated by how people got where they were going, whether it was intentional or seemingly accidental, even though I don't think that there are any accidents ever. It all ends up weaving a story and a tale. So I'm going to start with your law practice from many years ago, okay?
Yeah.
You practiced for 30 years, as I mentioned, but you were also in a band in college. Before we get into the legal career, which I just said we were going to talk about, I lied, because really I want to talk about ICO, the name of the band that you founded when you were at Vanderbilt just a few years ago. I'm curious how that plays a role in what you're doing today.
Well, I love how you say a few years ago when it was 40, but that's good at this point in our lives. No, I started playing music and singing music as a wee one, like 6 years old. My dad was a gospel recording artist, right? And
That's right.
I come from this
I forgot.
heavy Southern Baptist background from a small town in Tennessee. So my dad had a beautiful baritone voice, and he recorded with like the London Philharmonic and the Atlanta Symphony. Like he was larger than life to me when he was on that stage.
Mm-hmm.
At home, he was just
Dad.
a very tough dad. But when he was up there, it was like something, right, to see him performing. And he started to drag me up on stage, and we would be at these revivals, right, in the South. And they are exactly like you see on TV for the most part. People with their hands in the air and whatnot. And a little bit scary when you're a young person.
100%.
Oh gosh, it was just like, why is, like, especially when the music would start, right? But there was a solemnity there. There was this sanctuary for something greater than ourselves, right? And that was based around religious spirituality, I would say, but music was a strong thread in there. My dad was leading the way.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that. And just getting up and performing in front of thousands of crazed, religious zealots, that started my chops right there, like being able to do that. And I actually, little known fact,
I know, because I didn't even know half of that about you, and I thought I knew lots about you.
So I got this ventriloquist doll for Christmas, right? Because there was this woman named Geraldine, and Geraldine had this ventriloquist named Ricky, and they were like, she was like like an evangelist. She would go to these revivals too, and my dad had met her along the way. So I was like, I want to get me one of those ventriloquist dolls. So Santa Claus brought me one, and its name was Lester. There was a black one named Chester and a white one named Lester.
This almost sounds like the makings of a horror film.
Oh yeah. Well, I used to set that thing in a little rocking chair in my room, and my friends would come over and go, "Dude, that thing's scary." I'm like, I wake up
like
to him
Chucky.
every morning. I changed his name to Ricky because I wanted to be like Geraldine and Ricky.
Right.
So I learned how to use this ventriloquist doll. And I would come up with these little like Christian stories, and my dad was like, that's good enough for the stage. And so in front of these audiences, not only would I sing and sing with my dad and the choir, as a little fella, I had this this doll, Ricky. Hey, tell
Okay,
tell
I'm
friends about
dead.
Jesus, you know. So anyway, I got to performing early on, and then you know, like I realized like you can get a lot more chicks singing rock and roll than you can like you know the Bible thumping in
Right.
in the tent.
Right.
So I was like, okay. So I loved music.
Yeah.
I loved rock and roll. I taught myself. I bought a bass. I mowed yards all summer, and I saw this bass in a J.C. Penney catalog for $99.99. So I mowed yards all summer long to make enough money to buy it. Had $100.
And that work ethic, the fact that your parents didn't just get it for you. Like,
Yeah,
I
my parents
admire
didn't
that.
have it.
Yeah.
So, you know, this
Right.
is, I grew up in
You learned about working hard.
Yes, let's just say I did not grow up with a lot of economic privilege. Far from it. Like, we weren't poor, but you could see it from where we were. And so, for me, like, $99 was like, you know, 10 grand. You know? I was like,
Absolutely.
oh my gosh. So, anyway, I bought this bass and I taught myself how to play it. I knew how to play piano a little bit, and I taught myself how to play the bass, and started a band. And so I was in that band until all through high school, and then in college I was like, you know, I'm gonna hang this up, I guess. Ran into some buddies who also played music, and we started playing Grateful Dead music, Allman Brothers and things, stuff that I wasn't used to playing. And man, I just loved the Grateful Dead. And then
Yeah.
I went to see them and had my first hit of acid at my first Dead show, and I was like, I'm on the bus, baby.
You're
Let's
like,
go.
this is it.
That was it. So, you know, so then we had that band in college, and it was very popular. We played some of the venues in Nashville where we were house band, and people would line up around the street. My parents, these Southern Baptist, you know, teetotalers, would come, and all my friends would be tripping.
Were they horrified?
Ecstasy was legal.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, it was being handed out at the door, and here's my parents right in the middle, not moving.
Because
with,
this is the 80s, right?
This is the 80s, DS,
Yeah.
full on 80s.
Oh, yeah.
And so my band was really popular, but, you know, I told my parents, like, I think I might want to make a go of this, you know, music. And my dad was like, son, do you see where it got me? You need to stay in school. And I'd always wanted to be a lawyer, right? So I finished at Vanderbilt, went to law school at Pepperdine, and started my legal career. But the band, we kept playing, right?
Yeah.
And so...
And I've seen you guys perform Deer Valley every year,
Yeah.
Canyons, Park City. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's been this beautiful hobby, and one of the most fun things that it's so enriching. It's so great to some of the guys that are still there 40 years on, and we've picked up some players along the way, including my son Benjamin, who's one of the backup singers. I love that.
Now it's generational.
It's generational now. So I love it because it's this other part of me, you know, this other expression of my creativity, of my personality. But it's also like, I can't tell you the rush that you get walking onto a stage. People are screaming, you're with your homies, you're gonna make music, you're creating something that's never been created. And our style is such that it's got a jazz component, such that, you know, when you get to the, you know, full-on improvisational jam part, or leads, you know, you might call it, we just go for it, right? And you are listening to and creating something in real time that never existed and won't ever exist again, but you're doing it with an audience.
Right.
And so you're seeing the joy or the sadness, and you're seeing the dancing or the solemnity during a slow song, and you're feeling that energy. And if you weren't in that space, it would just be it would be dead space with air.
Right.
But when you're on that stage and you've got that crowd,
It's like it's probably like an animal. Like
it is.
like
It's-
this live amorphous thing.
That's funny you said that, because that's how some of the people that would be with the Grateful Dead, you could hear the energy and the electricity from all of the plugs and everything else before they take the stage, and it would be this whoa, whoa,
Oh my gosh, it gives me chills.
right?
And I've seen you perform, but I can't even imagine what it would feel like or be like to be part of the people
Yeah.
creating, like just the creation of that.
Well, I think as a little kid, you know, I was constantly like on. People go, "Oh, you're such a ham," but it's like I just didn't mind the spotlight, and I didn't mind performing, whatever that might be, whether it was speaking publicly or whatever. Like, it never bothered me. In fact, I embraced it. I loved it, and so.
Well, and as a trial attorney.
So the music first, and then the trial attorney, which is the same thing, and it's sort of like those Southern Baptist preachers and the music directors who are trying to get you to, you know, say, I need to be saved and come down front and let us bless you. And that, you know, Jerry and the Grateful Dead, it was that same vibe, right? As a revival, like it was going to church, lowercase c, but it was also I learned a different spirituality that wasn't associated necessarily with religion, right? Or the church or any kind. It wasn't related to any specific philosophy or religiosity, but rather it was your own spirituality in connection with whatever you're experiencing and whoever you're experiencing with. Like that could be the spirituality we have in this room right now.
Absolutely.
Right? Or it could be me on stage playing in front of 5,000 people. Or, it could just be a room for an AA, right? There's spirituality in those things, right? Group therapy and whatnot. Same thing was true in like talking to a jury.
That's
that was
what I was going to ask
me.
you. Like as a trial attorney, I mean, I know that's really serious and there's so much at stake, but I still think like what I would give to have been a juror or in the courtroom to just watch you perform, if you will, because you have to be really persuasive and charismatic and convincing and all of these things. And you had this tremendously successful decades-long legal career, nationally, internationally, before you pivoted to Song Summit.
It's kind of like I started in music and I'm back to music. So it's more circular rather than linear for me when it comes to what really got my creative juices going, what I believe is the ultimate expression of my own flair, of my own personality, and that is performing music, right? Whereas the law practice was a means to an end. Yeah. Like I couldn't stand being a lawyer, but I love trying cases.
Okay, so that's interesting, and that's completely understandable as somebody who likes to be a ham and be on stage. And also, in those years, you were busy supporting a family and doing all the things that a young person has to do.
Right.
So then when you retired, because I want to get into Park City Song Summit, which is just so incredible that I know your wife, my dear friend Paige, co-founded with you. I'm so curious what that conversation looked like. I'm sure it wasn't just one. I'm sure it was a series, but was that like at breakfast one day? Were you on a walk on the beach? Were you on a ski lift? What was the brainchild? Like, how did this thing happen?
There's a few seeds, as you might expect, that were planted along the way that ultimately grew into something that was ultimately now is Park City Song Summit. The very first seed, and so it's kind of like when things are really dicey when it comes to trying to run one of these things, which is one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And that includes practicing law at the highest level and trying cases, multi-billion-dollar, cases against the biggest companies in the world. That's an
interesting point.
Yeah, it's that risk factor, that gamble factor, right?
Yeah.
And
high stakes.
Yeah, high stakes, big time.
And
you're
huge
right.
stage.
Oh, huge stage, right? And massive consequences if you falter.
Massive consequences, right?
So that, I think we had not even moved here. I think we were visiting, and we were on Main Street, and Paige said to me, wow, it's amazing that this town doesn't have some sort of music festival. If when we move here one of these days, and I don't think we thought about it, I was like, if, or when we move here? Like,
You're like, what are you
okay, I thought
talking
it was
about?
an if. But
this is a ski vacation.
It was like, when we move here one of these days, if there isn't one, I think we should create one, right? Not knowing what the hell we would be getting ourselves into, trust me.
Like most things one jumps into.
So then we moved here, still no festival, and my career was, I felt like I was ready to wind down. I was exhausted.
Oh my God, you had to be.
You probably know this feeling, but this happened to me a couple of times where I would be standing in front of a board and not know where I was going, and I'm looking at with a blank stare at a screen full of flights and just like, oh my gosh. Where am I?
I definitely know that feeling.
So that practical but also larger existential idea of where am I and where am I going, I started to internalize that and go, dude, that is what's going on here, because I would be gone for like over 2 months away from my bed, my wife, my kids, and I was like, okay, it's time to really start thinking about an exit strategy, right? So when that feeling got there and we moved to Park City, and I had like one more year on my career, I think, that I tried a couple of cases that were, at the time, record verdicts against Johnson & Johnson. And I was like, You know that commercial where they've got the numbers under their arm and they're doing the hedge and stuff. They're like, "What is your number? You know, to retire."
Right, right.
Whatever.
What's your walkaway number?
Yeah, I didn't know what that number was in my account nor what I needed to be, but I knew that whatever it is because I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm exhausted.
Maybe the number instead is a feeling.
Yeah.
The feeling is this.
I love that. Yeah, like there's a $sign, but insert, you know, self-care,
right.
insert wellness, insert
mental health,
recovery. Yes, mental health, right? Or you know, keeping your marriage going.
Yeah,
whatever that.
Little things like that.
Having your family know who you are when you walk through the door.
Recognize you.
So yeah, so Paige had this idea. Then we moved here, and then, you know, I'm in recovery. I'm 17 years in recovery.
Which,
I'm very grateful for that.
I don't want to cut you off, but I love how open and public you are with your stories, because I just know that it helps so many people to either look at their own behaviors, even in our little conversation outside when you're talking about, it doesn't even necessarily have to be substance, it can be work, it can be whatever you're doing to an extreme at the expense of other things or to avoid other things, even if you don't know you're doing it for that reason at the time.
Yeah, I mean, you've described it perfectly right there. That is exactly what, to me anyway, recovery means. It's like, I always say we're all in recovery from something.
100%.
Because we all have parents and grandparents. That means they also had parents and grandparents. So there's generational trauma there. There's just the trauma of everything from being, you know, a pimple-faced teenager and getting turned down by girls. There's
the girl in the back brace for scoliosis.
Yes, exactly. I had those braces in my mouth too, and just, you know, you're worried about every pimple on your face, and the girl in eighth, you know, in fourth period, you know, that you're trying to impress. So all that stuff, it gives us a big baggage of negativity, positive, all these things that oftentimes will manifest itself in behavior that we don't see as bad behavior or harmful behavior or whatever, but others do, and it causes a lack of mindfulness, a lack of the presence of equanimity. It causes us to not really be our true selves because we've got this other stuff hanging on, and it's baggage. It's weighing us down. And until I understood that better, you know, it was important. So, you know, Anders Osborne's a dear friend. He's in recovery as well. Great musician, right? One of the greatest songwriters that ever lived. And I would say
I'm crazy about him and didn't even know who he was until you know so many musicians personally and just an awareness of them because of your background and your introduction of him and the learning of his story.
Yeah, recovery's given me that. Recovery has given me the ability to be sitting where I am right now. It's given me the ability to meet others in recovery and to understand, like, I'm not alone. I'm special, but I'm not unique in my challenges. And so I think all of us are created very special because there's only one of us. We've got one fingerprint, right? It's like, you know, what do we, you know, maybe we could do something in Park City, Ben, that is, you know, focused on wellness, focused on, you know, the rigors of touring and what the live music ecosystem goes through, just so that people can go and be entertained for those 2 hours, right? And so that was a second leg of the stool, I would say. And then Scooter Thompson, who used to run OP Rockwell, came to me one day and said, "Hey, I got this friend, Aaron Benward. He's a songwriter. He does Nashville Unplugged in Vegas, and he wants to come talk to you about maybe doing a songwriter festival." So when I met with him, it was just like, okay, other people have this concept, let's try it. So we tried that in 2019, and it was great. You know, we had speakers who spoke about recovery. We had recovery meetups, you know, sort of 12-step based meetups every day. We had conversations around wellness. We had conversations around other things too, like how do you deal with the world of streaming, and what about music supervision and sync licenses, like you name it, right? And it was small, but it was really impactful.
Powerful.
And yeah, it was like, wow, this may be the next chapter in life, right? And then 2020 hit.
Exactly.
And it was like, okay.
It derailed things, or it didn't derail, but it put a little pause in things.
Yeah, it definitely, it caused me to have the time to connect with people and to rebrand, re-envision, like,
that's a great point.
How could we take this and grow from it during this time period? Like, let's use this wisely. And it was great. I got connected with Jay Sweet of Newport Folk Fest, and we talked for a long time, and he ultimately became a friend and a consultant. And it gave me a chance to meet with other people and to really think about our brand. I met with brand people And so, you know, it allowed me to go, okay, this could really be a disruptor in the music industry, so that we can focus more on the music community rather than the music industry. Because there's a lot of festivals out there, and they focus on that bottom line, baby.
And people, a lot of people even in Park City will call it like, oh, Park City Song Summit, it's a music festival. And you've taught me, I like to correct people as if like I have ownership in it. And I say, it's not a music festival. It is an event that is around songwriting and music and wellness and recovery and all of these different aspects. I'm sure I'm leaving some of the aspects out.
No, I think that's great, because it's like we wanted to, we had festival in our name in 2019, and one of the things Jay Sweet and I talked about, it's like, look, if you don't want to be a festival, then don't put it in your name, right? So we do call it a summit, right?
Yes.
And it's a summit of ideas, it's a summit of wellness, it's a summit of recharging, of connection, which is so huge, right? But also creativity, like all of the different facets of creativity, whether it's painting or spoken word or songwriting or song production or, you know, music performances, you name it, right? And there's a lot of emotion that comes out of connecting in an intimate space and hearing an artist that can be very vulnerable and they can open up and talk about their journey, you know, their process, whatever. And then you see them at night performing with their band. Well, now you have a different connection with them, and then it's you have more, you care about them more, you care about their lives more, you understand why he or she wrote that song or whatever, right?
Well, and I feel like I could give a testimony because I am not a great knower, understander of anything to do with the process. And even a lot of the musicians that you would name, like, it's so exciting, so-and-so is coming, so-and-so, I was having to Google that person, like, I don't know who that is. And then I would go sit in a small room and listen to these songwriters talk about their process. And even Brianna and my husband, like, it would make us emotional. I mean, it was beautiful. And then to hear them perform in a small venue or a bigger one, like you're saying, at night, it's just, it was extremely, I keep using the word powerful.
Right.
Like, just so much about it and understanding what makes them, what their process is, how they got to do what they're doing, and the struggles, like, just being really real about it.
To have that kind of impact that you're discussing that you had, that's what we set out to do. That our special sauce is being able to have people walk away different in a very positive way than they walked into the room or walked into the amphitheater, whatever space that we've created. And the idea is that we want the artist and their team to come into town and have it as a retreat, have it as a hang, whether it's the start of the tour, middle of the tour, end of the tour, and to just like, take a deep breath, breathe our mountain air, you know, bike, hike, come to our recovery meetups. We treat them like kings and queens, right? So that they can really see this as the ability to recharge, reignite their passion for music, songwriting, whatever that may be, right? And so it's definitely landed well, because a lot of the artists and the people that come will want to come back. They're like, please, can I get back to this?
Now it's a freight train.
Right.
What do you see as the future for Park City Song Summit? If you are, unless it's a big secret, or what's your vision for it? Or what are some of the things that are happening if you feel like announcing it? Or is it more of a stay tuned because big things are coming?
Well, you know, within an hour of us sitting down, those larger discussions, vision discussions, existential discussions, like where are we financially, where are we along our mission, are we accomplishing what we set out to, can we pay for this, you know? It's one of those things where
very real things.
You're looking for new investors, you're looking for new sponsors, and you know, post-pandemic it's really hard because a lot of independent music festivals, look, we're not Live Nation, we're not AEG. They have balance sheets to beat the band, they own the venues, they manage the artists, they sell the tickets, they've got the full vertical,
whole
right?
Different machine.
That's a whole different machine, and it is a machine, right? And for us, it's like we're one of the independent, small, what's considered a boutique festival, which is around 10,000 or less. And it's super hard these days because artist costs are at record highs, production costs are at record highs, but ticket sales and sponsorships are trending downward, right? So it's like,
interesting. I didn't even think about that.
So what happens is, unfortunately, the big boys set the number, right? And so the ones with the big balance sheet can set new prices for these artists that are like you can't even imagine what you have to pay for an artist.
Oh, I can't.
Up so much in the last few years. Everybody thought, oh, after the pandemic, everybody's going to come out to concerts, and that's going to be the thing that they have to do, and artists are going to just want to play again, and and it'll be more. It'll cost less to put this on because so many people, and it's been just the opposite. Ticket prices have gone higher, production costs higher, artist costs, and to a large extent, it's those larger producers and promoters that are making it very difficult for folks like myself to
smaller,
exist. Yeah.
Which is so sad because, or I shouldn't say sad, but I would say frustrating because the smaller, more intimate, it's like a boutique hotel versus a Hyatt, No disrespect to Hyatt, we love Hyatt.
It's a large chain versus a
Yes,
standalone.
it's a large chain versus a small, sweet, intimate situation.
Yeah, it makes it very hard. So, but we in terms of where we're going, yeah, I mean, first of all, I would like to get to where we feel like we are, our revenue is exceeding our expenses, and we're not quite there yet.
These are good goals, but you're getting there.
So with a sort of 101 business management, we'd like to get there, and we're getting there.
And I do feel like the feedback from this past one, I feel like at least the feeling, maybe the tipping point in a good way. I feel like there's such a buzz about it right now, and the talk about how incredible it was this year.
I've heard that a lot, Flair.
Of people are listening in.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more.
Literally and figuratively.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Thank you. It was an inflection point for sure. Like, it felt like we finally got over a hump of some sort. I mean, only to find that there's another hill, but you got over that one, right? So it's like challenge of the day, right? Yeah, we know that we're going to be throwing a lot of curveballs in this life. And my daily routine is to get up and try to save some time there for
Oh, good, because that
yoga.
was one of my questions.
Oh.
What is your daily routine?
Or
not daily, but like morning routine. Are you a person who hits the snooze button 5 times, like, oh
sometimes.
My God? Or do you get up and you're sitting on a meditation pillow?
Sometimes.
Okay.
My goal is to not do the former, but to certainly achieve the latter, and that's all about just discipline, right?
Discipline.
And just making your body get up and get into, first I stretch, and then it's my own little yoga routine, which I call boga, Ben's version of yoga.
Oh, I call mine intentional stretching with my dog.
Okay.
In the morning, I get up with Cricket on my yoga mat, and I call it yoga, but it's intentional stretching.
Yeah, I mean, a yogi might look in on both of us and just go,
exactly.
That is completely
but
wrong.
That is not yoga.
It's my truth.
I'm calling it yoga.
Exactly. So it's my version of that, and then a meditation, my version of meditation, which is both a prayer and meditation. And but I usually end that with, like, I know there are going to be curveballs today, just let me handle those, and put somebody in my path that I can learn from today, put somebody in my path that I might help in some way, right? Even if it's just some small thing.
That's really beautiful. I might add that to mine, because I always try to have a word. Lots of times the word is more than one word, like just make it through the day. But really, increasingly I try to just set the intention, like capable, calm, creative. I have to remind myself, because otherwise I'm like a whirling dervish of, like, strung out, like trying to just react to everything.
Of course, and that's why we're geared to do that, right?
Right.
Because we operate from the R brain, right? They call it the reptile brain, and that is survival, right? It's fight or flight. It's that part of our brain that has kept us, anthropologically and evolutionary wise. Going on and on, right? Because it was cavemen going, okay, it's getting cold, let's move to a warmer spot.
Yeah.
Or that is a saber-toothed tiger, I need a spear. Like, it's the same thing, and it's just like we wake up feeling like, oh my God, I've got so much to do, and how am I going to get it done? And so many people are depending on me. I just got to get in the shower and get out the door.
Yeah, vibrationally, you're like, and talk about energy. People can feel it.
Yeah, and whatever that frequency of the day was, or could have been for me anyway, I'm off frequency a little bit, right? And so it's just like, sometimes I'll get to the office and be like, okay, I didn't have a chance to meditate, didn't have a chance to do yoga. I'm just going to turn the truck off, and I'm going to sit here for 2 minutes and meditate.
That's such great advice.
And just like,
and you're not scrolling Instagram. That's
breathing,
amazing.
Get my breathe. Yes. Yeah. I mean, the urge
breathing,
is to do that.
And nasal breathing, like in for 5, out for 5.
Yeah, do some box breathing, and just like, okay.
I want to know what fuels your creativity. I know you are a traveler, and I'm lucky enough, my husband and I, with Paige and you, We have had some amazing trips.
Oh, yeah.
Skiing in France and art looking and sourcing and learning in Cuba and
San Miguel de Allende.
San Miguel de Allende.
Yes, in New Orleans.
Does travel fuel your creativity?
1,000%. It is one
or
of
just
the...
give you perspective, or all of it?
All of it. A great question. So we just got back from a month in Australia, right?
I know you're a superstar for being here. I don't even think you know what day it is.
I don't. I don't know what country
They
I'm in.
literally were gone for a month, and he is...
Yep. 60th birthday celebration.
Yep.
My wife is a saint. So we...
and you're making time for this. Thank you so much.
Oh,
but I'm not done with
always
you.
my
I've got more
pleasure.
questions. But talk
So,
about creativity and what else spurs that, and travel.
So I think if more people traveled, like really traveled, and didn't try to take their Western culture or whatever their culture they're used to, and try to superimpose that on wherever they are. Like, gosh, they don't speak my language. This food doesn't taste right. I really wish I could go to a Subway. You know, if you could just go there open to receive,
Right.
and to be an observer, but then also to learn more about their culture, you'd realize, people collectively would more realize that we're all the same.
Absolutely.
And it's our differences that make this world so beautiful. If we were all Bible-thumping Christians from Gallatin, Tennessee, it would be a very boring world,
Right.
at least in my opinion. And so different cultures bring out different flair. They bring out different vibes, different, for sure, spiritual frequency for me. So,
and I think I love that it gets me out of myself.
oh yeah,
Like instead of
you
just
have to
like
be vulnerable.
marching through life, it allows me to just take a beat, my own, I don't think that I'm a big egotistical person, but still, self-importance. You have to be vulnerable, the word that you just said. You can't be like, why is the check taking so long? Why is dinner taking 2 hours? Just like, you have to like lean into it. And it's just every trip I take, I say is life-changing, and that might sound like I'm exaggerating, but I'm not. I feel like it just grows you and expands you and changes you.
Absolutely. And you learn, one thing I'm learned is gratitude, because we got it pretty good here in the old US of A.
we do.
We have a lot of problems. Every country does.
Yep.
We arguably have some more problems today than we have in the past, but then again, some of these same problems have existed in the past, right? No matter how far back you go or how recent you go. And the idea is, like, no matter how bad some of that may feel or look on your phone or their TV or whatnot, we got it pretty darn good.
Exactly.
There's people, but a lot of people who are going through arguably much less desirable quality of life or life circumstances. They do it with a smile on their face, and they sing songs.
We literally just got back
paint.
from Peru, and so much poverty in so many places, and they were the kindest. I know I'm generalizing, but still, like the kindness, like positive attitudes, smiles, just there's such a lesson there.
Yep. And for me, like creativity-wise, I was standing at a rock formation called Uluru. It used to be called Ayers Rock in the middle of Australia, and those people, the Ananu people, they're the largest, the oldest living civilization on the planet. Right?
Wow.
They go back 40,000 years, and
Holy
the
moly.
Aboriginal people there go back 100,000 years, right? We don't even think in terms of 10,000, much less 45, 50,000, 100,000 years. And you're standing at a rock that has been sacred to them, a space that has been sacred to them on this planet for 45,000 years. It was created 350 million years ago. And here's this enormous rock. And what I learned is that their creation stories are in the rock. And then we got told some of those stories because they don't release all of them. It's very personal to them as a people.
Too. Right.
But even the shadows of the rocks have stories. And
that
so
is so cool.
You go, wow, maybe Christians have, the birth of Christ, and Muslims have the birth of Muhammad, and you go back and forth, right? And it's just like, what I find out is about religion or religiosity is that is based in our culture and the way we were raised and our version of the creation story.
Right.
But there are thousands of them out there.
Yeah.
Right? And so they're learning that these people have been around for so long, and that learned to survive on, in a desert area, right? How do they protect themselves? How do they do that? It was through stories. they have oral histories. They didn't write anything down
Right.
like that, other than carvings on the wall, but even that was storytelling. And it took me back to, like, that's what songwriting is. That's what Song Summit is. It's about
I love
our
that.
collective journeys or our individual journeys, and how they are very similar, but how those emotions can be put into words, and then it comes into something that's 3.5 minutes long, and we remember that song the rest of our lives.
I mean, that's so incredible that you could have that feeling and comparison and see it metaphorically in all those.
And what I also found is, like, I was meditating on this bench at a sacred pool, and it's the same bench where the Dalai Lama had meditated for 4 hours, and he declared it his favorite place in all of Australia.
Wow.
And when you sit there and you meditate, you hear the songs of nature. So the song of the wind going through the trees, and the birds that have generationally been there for eons, right? And you realize, like, there is music in nature, and we're replicating that. Just like when you see a perfect sunset, it's like that is Mother Nature painting the most beautiful and once-in-a-lifetime thing, because
Right.
it'll never be the same, right?
Right.
So for me, nature inspires me. Different nature, different cultures. I was in the oldest rainforest on the planet, and that was a very spiritual journey for me too. And I dove the Great Barrier Reef, and I realized I'm seeing what 99.9% of the population will never
Right.
see.
It's so humbling.
And it's
And
so
don't you think
humbling.
it also makes you feel like tiny and minute, which is a good feeling? I don't think tiny and minute in a like, oh, I'm not worthy way. I think it's a good thing to be made to feel sometimes tiny and minute, because it puts our own problems and whirling dervish feelings
Right.
at 6 in the morning in perspective.
Yes.
Not that things don't matter, life is important, but I think it's really good perspective. And I'm gonna
Absolutely.
shift
Yeah,
soon,
sure.
because I
Great.
hate to like lighten it up to silly questions, because we're talking about all these really important spiritual
Oh,
things I can
silly's-
talk about for
silly's
hours.
good.
But I still want to
Serious can be
I want to do
silly.
like some rapid fire things with you
Let's do it.
before we finish,
All
okay?
right.
If you had to choose a song to be the soundtrack of your life, what is the song?
It's a hard one. I think the song by the Grateful Dead, "Addicts of My Life,"
Okay.
is one that's really meaningful to me. And oddly enough, "Freebird" by Leonard Skinner, because that's always been me.
I love that
I've
song.
been
I
that
don't know
person.
the first song, but I love that song.
Yeah, I mean, both of those are beautiful. Just sort of like "Once You Fly," "Freebird," like that
Yep.
was me getting out of a small town in Tennessee. That was me
Yeah.
being the black sheep of my family.
Mhm.
That was me saying, I want something bigger in my life,
Bigger and different.
and I want my uniqueness not to be something that is constantly tampered or repressed based upon religion or a culture that is, simple and just country and da-da. That's great. Those are part of my value system.
Right.
At the same time, it didn't allow me. So anyway,
Yeah.
I'd say
I
"Addicts in
think
My Life," number
those-
one,
those
maybe
are- those are
"Freebird's"
good
right in
ones.
there too,
I
though.
love it. What about a book or a movie that you love that you'd recommend? One or the other. Doesn't even
Okay.
have to be deep and serious. It could be silly,
Yeah.
like Step Brothers, whatever.
Yeah. So book first. So a compendium was really life-changing for me, and one was 10% Happier.
Oh, I loved that book.
Oh my gosh. And its compendium is Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics, which is what I
Oh.
was.
Okay, I don't know that one.
Okay,
and
you should
I
read that
need-
one, 'cause
You
it-
know me, I need that one.
It's like part 2, right? It's the sequel.
Okay.
And those two made meditation practice silly and fun and accessible.
Okay.
It's huge for me. And all of a sudden, it said, meditation can be your own, and it can be done in so many different ways. And this guy's journey, Dan Harris's journey, the former ABC
Right.
news correspondent,
It's so good.
so good and hilarious.
And how he tells it and the humor
Yes.
behind it
And he
all
had
of
some
it.
of the same addiction issues that I did too, that were and trauma that I did.
Mhm.
So it was like, okay, I get that.
Okay,
he had been
those are good
Yeah,
ones.
so those would be that. And then movies, I don't know, man. Oh, and another book, A Prayer for Owen Meany, is one
Yes.
of my favorite
I love that
John
book.
Irving books.
I want to read that again, actually.
yeah,
It's been
me
a very,
too.
very long time.
That's such a great book
Yeah.
for me. And then movies, I don't know, man. I could say We Are the Millers. I could say Sound of Music. Step
I
Brothers.
know it's really
you mentioned is
it's
great.
really hard for me to just
Yeah.
pick one of anything. It's too
yeah.
confining. It
Yeah.
gives me like,
Yeah, it's hard for me.
commitment issues.
Yes.
What about, okay, what is the weirdest job you've ever had? that maybe has nothing to do with music or law? Or did you ever have like a job that you sold shoes?
I had a job where I did help my grandfather sell boots. I
Oh,
was a little guy.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he'd take me on the road. We would travel through all these state roads, and he would say, "All right, now I want you to learn from me, son, how to sell boots and
Like what kind of
leather
boots?
boots,
Work boots, cowboy boots, just
cowboy
leather?
boots,
Okay,
cowboy
okay.
boots, and cowboy belts, Western wear.
Okay.
All right,
Because
so
this was
this in Tennessee
Tennessee.
and Kentucky.
Okay,
So
okay.
we would drive these back roads, and he would tell me stories. It was a great part of my life.
And
I
what
could-
a gift to just spend that time with your
Oh,
grandfather.
It was great. He smoked cigarettes,
Oh.
and I would like try to blow on them to try to make them go faster. But after he finished the cigarette, he would also offer me a slice of juicy fruit gum.
I
So
thought
I
you
was
were
like,
going to say he passed you the cigarette.
No,
I'm like,
no, but
cool.
ultimately I did start smoking cigarettes
Yep.
because of Granddaddy, because I found his Salem Lights in the garage right next to his bottle of Seagram's.
Did you barf?
So I started early on.
Did you barf?
No, I didn't barf. That was the problem, I think, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, but one of the craziest jobs I had was I was working on the road crew, and I had to literally shovel shit. So we would be taken to where the sanitation area was, the
I'm
sewer,
afraid to ask, like, what kind of
the
species?
sewer,
Shit.
and a human.
Human?
And so it
Human
would,
excrement.
yes, it would get the shit beds would get clogged up, and so we were the youngsters
Oh my
that were
God.
there for the
Speaking of
summer.
barf, I'm like, "Wow."
And they would, yes, you get out there with boots on in the 100-degree heat and humidity, 90% humidity. So you can imagine the smell. We didn't have anything to cover our faces. We would just,
How old were you?
I was 15 years old.
Oh my God.
And we would have to scrape and literally shovel these shit beds to where they'd come unclogged. And there was all kinds of things in there other than just excrement, right?
Oh my
And
God.
so that was one of the
you,
weirdest
you,
jobs
you
ever.
win for weirdest and worst.
Yeah.
I can't imagine somebody topping that. I want to say, I have so many more questions.
That's all right.
But I'm just going to say, I'm not even going to ask you other questions. I'm just going to say, what is your personal definition of flair or characteristics, character qualities of a person who lives their life with flair?
Yeah.
In my mind, you do.
Okay.
Physically and how you dress and how you live your life. But I'm curious
I
to
would
you.
define flair as a manifestation of unapologetic yet authentic expression of one's inner self, their soul, and their spirit. And
Ooh, that's
that
a good one.
form of expression could be the way you treat others.
Mm-hmm.
It could be whistling going up the street, and it could also be visual arts. It could be the music that you write. It could be the clothes that you wear. It could be the house that you design for someone or for yourself. And so all of these expressions, I think, sort of, they are reflective of who you are. And your inner flair is, I would say, it's your inner self, and allowing that to be manifested so that others might experience it, to me, is sort of part of my journey of spirituality in recovery, or just my journey, period. And that is being very, very happy and loving myself, forgiving myself, and saying, who I am is very special, and I'm unique, and I'm on this planet for a very short period of time. So I want to be myself. So when I'm in New Orleans at our place there, and I walk out on the streets and I see, a 6'10" black transvestite wearing a pink tutu, I go, good on ya.
Exactly.
Right, because that's
Yeah.
their expression of who
expression.
they are, right? But I think it could either be, because you could see an artist, maybe you're more goth, right? And you're just completely dressed in black,
it's
and
your
the music that you
self-expression.
do is death metal, right? Like, good on you. You're expressing yourself, right?
Right.
And your emotion. So that's flair. And the people that do it best, like Liberace, okay? That was flair. But it could also be, what's the Japanese artist with polka dots?
Oh, Murakami?
Yeah, she is amazing.
She's amazing.
And
she
to
did a whole
me,
collab with Louis Vuitton.
she is the ultimate expression, Yayoi Kusama.
There you go, Yoki
And
Kusama.
she is
Yeah.
like, she's 93 years old or
Yeah.
something, right? But she is like those polka
She's living
dots.
her truth.
she's living her truth.
But I want to say your answer, and I'm completely serious, and even saying it might make me emotional. Your answer makes me emotional. Like, that's such a beautiful way to say that.
Yeah.
It's like, can I write that down? And then I realize, oh, it's recorded. I don't have to write it down.
Well,
I can listen to it back.
Like, you are, and I'm not blowing, air up your skirt, but it's just like you are a wonderful example of, and through your social media, through all of your channels, but also just your personal interactions, interpersonal reactions of like where your flair, or be bold if you want to be bold, be modest if you want to be modest, but just be yourself.
Be you.
Right?
Just you, be you. Yeah.
And I think that I'm more comfortable in my skin, my clothes, my choice. Like, it's not giving a shit about what somebody else thinks about you. If what you wear makes you happy, as long as you aren't hurting other people,
That's
right?
how I feel.
Right? It's like,
don't
be
cause harm,
yourself.
don't hurt other people, and do and be who and what you need to be.
Because you're worthy.
Right.
So if you're worthy, then you have every right, you have every liberty to be yourself.
Right.
And if that's wearing shorts and flip-flops,
right, do it.
And writing a song and recording that and putting it on TikTok, good on you.
Exactly.
Right? If that's creating wonderful meals for people, and that what you feel about that, like, what's more flair than putting together a beautiful plate of food and having somebody go,
that's art. That's art, and that's love.
It is
that's
art
and love.
Flair has got a lot of, there's art in that.
Right.
But also,
tell people where they can find you. I cut you off, sorry. But
Yeah.
your social channels.
Oh.
I know that our viewers and listeners are going to be obsessed with you if they don't already know you, and I want you to tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, so Park City Song Summit. So you can just go to parkcitySongSummit.com and learn about our music and wellness event. And it's a way, way different type of event than other music festivals.
Absolutely it is.
And it's a place where you can really come and learn and grow. And I would say, and then at Park City Song Summit, Insta is our usually, what I go to, Instagram. So, and then Ben Anderson Official, at Ben Anderson Official, and at The Paige Against the Machine.
I know, I love her name. We'll
wife's,
make sure it's all on there too.
Yeah,
I
and
just
so
wanna
yeah.
Thank you so much for the time you've spent
Oh,
with
Flair,
us today.
I love you to death.
Your friendship is such a gift, and your time is such a gift, especially coming back a month from the other side of the world and showing up here 2 days later.
Well, I like to say that my life is very much like this long, beautiful journey down Route 66. And it's kind of like that song by the band, The Wait. And it's meeting people along the way, sharing experiences, conversing like we're doing here today. And each one of these is like, you pull into a gas station and the bell rings when you open the door, but there's a guy whittling out front and you sit next to him. And then somebody needs you to put the dog in the back of your pickup truck and take it down the road a mile, or somebody's broken down, you help them fix their tire. Like,
it's
that
the journey.
is a life journey right there. And the journey is the destination. Right.
Definitely.
And this is part of that journey. And so I'm honored that you had me on your program, and I'd love to come back sometime.
Oh, I will have you back for sure.
And share Flair.
Yeah, and share the Flair.
Hashtag share the Flair.
Yes. Thank you so much, Ben Anderson. You are dynamite.
Love you, Flair.
We're done. Hey, thanks for listening to today's episode of The Cult of Flair. I'm Stephanie Hunt. If you like what you heard, please share it with a friend. Follow the podcast on whatever platforms you are listening. Follow me on Instagram at The Flairhunter or at The Cult of Flair. And until next time, go find your Flair.